The Backrooms. You've been here before. Entity number 173, Evocationaries. Habitats. Level 18. Memories. Majority. Description. Evocationaries are shapeshifters that take the appearance of an important item of any wanderer. These can vary greatly depending on the childhood one had, from a childhood toy, a family photo, to a knife or a beer bottle. No one has been able to witness an evocationary in its natural form, as even groups of wanderers have reported seeing a singular evocationary as an important item of their past. When taken by the wanderer, the entity gives them a sense of nostalgia, and, eventually, sucks the wanderer into its body, which transports them to level 18. Note that they can be killed by destroying their body. Said task can vary from extremely straightforward to very difficult depending on the item the evocationary turned into. Behaviors. Evocationaries have three states when encountered by a wanderer, known as the three R's: the recognition, the reminiscent, and the relocation state. The recognition state. The recognition state is where an evocationary takes the appearance of an item dedicated to a wanderer's past. Although attempts to view an evocationary before this state have been proven futile, it is known that once Entity 173 has successfully morphed, a wanderer is suddenly overcome with an extreme feeling of desolation. During this state, one must make all attempts to find the evocationary, as it does not attempt to make itself known. This has led a few Meg members to the brink of suicide. Be wary that if one is in a group and all are going through this state, a few may become violent and use physical combat to get to the entity first. Once a wanderer has recognized and taken the entity, it moves on to the second state, the reminiscent state. This occurs once a wanderer picks up the entity. In this state, one will find themselves trapped in nostalgia, and will remember every single memory of the item the evocationary has taken the appearance of, leaving them frozen in a vegetative state. As this occurs, anyone with the victim will be free of the negative emotions that came from the first state, and will no longer feel the need to take the entity away from them. However, they will still see it as their childhood item. At this point, the other wanderers now have a chance to quickly swipe the evocationary and kill it. Understand, however, that the victim will still be violent. Note, this state can be prevented by resisting the urge to take the evocationary and killing it right away. However, know that this takes an incredible amount of willpower to refuse this urge. The relocation state. This is the final state, where the wanderer is sucked into the evocationary and is teleported to level 18. Eyewitnesses report seeing Entity 173 float out of a victim's hands and pull them in. As of recent, the victim hasn't been found. According to Meg reports, upon transport to level 18, the level seems to have an interesting effect on evocationaries, as their properties seem to change when encountered there. The item that the wanderer sees upon transport to level 18 no longer seems to have any mental or emotional effect on them, and now seems to be covered in, quote-unquote, static. The evocationary now seems to be safe to interact with. However, be wary that some effects may continue to last because of the level itself. Biology. Depending on the childhood of a wanderer, evocationaries take on three different forms: the comfort, the trauma, and the covet form. The comfort form. The most common of the three. The comfort form is where the evocationaries take the appearance of a cherished item that belonged to a wanderer with a happy childhood. Examples include, but are not limited to, a plush toy, an action figure, or an accessory. When in this form, wanderers will find themselves desperate and violent, and will do anything necessary to take the entity. The trauma form. The second most common, the trauma form, is where Entity 173 takes the form of an item that is related to a wanderer with trauma/a bad childhood. Examples include, but are not limited to, knives, empty beer bottles, and whips. Two things may occur here. One will use this entity as a way to hurt others, which makes other wanderers break free from the recognition state entirely, or they try to run away from the entity, which creates a paradox from the first state, which usually leads to death unless another wanderer kills the evocationary. Note that the effects each form has on a different wanderer are fairly similar to one another, with the only exception being visible panic, or using the entity as a weapon being the one thing that separates the trauma form from the other two. The covet form. The final and rarest form is taken when a particular wanderer lacks a certain childhood that allows for an evocationary to take the comfort or trauma form. This is where the entity shifts into an item that the wanderer always wanted in their life, but was never able to get. Examples include, but are not limited to, jewelry, a toy, or an accessory. This will leave the same effect comfort forms have on wanderers. As mentioned previously, it is unknown what the true form of an evocationary is. Attempts to take photos of the entity has only led to broken devices, unprocessed films, or incredibly glitchy images that are not reliable enough to confirm what the real form of an evocationary is. However, its appearance in death has been documented. Upon killing Entity 173 through means of crushing, it melts into an incredibly acidic substance, similar to that of fluoroantimonic acid. It is strongly encouraged to not come into contact with an evocationary after its death. Discovery. Entity 173 was discovered on February 4th, 2012, when a man by the name of Campbell Paquette stumbled upon it in level 11, the Endless City. Upon first discovery, evocationaries were listed as an object, but as more reports came in and it was found that they could be killed, it was relisted as an entity. Written below is the transcript for a group interview led by researcher Cataline Rodriguez. This interview reveals how evocationaries were found to be an entity rather than an object, based on the accounts of three people. Interview with entity encounterers. Interviewer Cataline Rodriguez. Interviewee 1 Campbell Paquette. Interviewee 2 Laura Quigley. Interviewee 3 Russell Winship. Interviewer. Good day. I'm Dr. Cataline Rodriguez, a researcher of a group I'm sure you're all aware of. Interviewee 3. Yeah, the Meg. How many interviews have I pulled for them already? Interviewee 2. I shouldn't even be here right now. I have a life to live. Interviewee 1. A life to live? Here in the backrooms? Boy, what a joke. Interviewer. Yes, yes, I understand that, and I do apologize deeply for the inconvenience. However, we've read your reports on a certain object that you all have seen that, oddly enough, seem relatively related to each other. Therefore, the Meg has decided to have you all come back for one more interview. Interviewee. Fine, but we better get this done fast. Interviewer. Right, right. Yes. Mr. Paquette, is it? Tell me about the encounter you had on the 4th of February, 2012. Interviewee 1. I told the story a million times, and nothing's ever happened since then. Interviewer. Perhaps to the other interviewers, but not to us. Besides, if you're so hasty to take your leave, then you'll have to retell the story one more time. Interviewee 1. Ah, fine. I was walking through level 11, trading, when something caught my eye. Some sort of toy. I was about to ignore it, and all of a sudden, I felt like sobbing if I didn't take a look again. Bloody embarrassing, that was. When I turned around to look at it, it disappeared. I felt almost desperate to search for it. So that's what I did. I ran around like some kind of git until I found it. And what do you know, it was this old Transformer action figure from the 80s. I had one of them when I was a kid. Got it as soon as my hands could grab 'em. Anyhow, I picked it up, and I felt safe holding the bloody thing. I blinked and somehow ended up in level 18. Memories. Interviewer. I see. Laura Quigley? Why don't you tell us about July 25th, 2013? Interviewee 2. All right. I was scavenging for supplies down in that infinite apartment complex level. Note, see level 13, the infinite apartments. When in one of the rooms, I saw a little doll. She had red hair and black eyes. Interviewee 3. Sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. Interviewee 2. A what? Interviewer. Ahem, please continue. Interviewee 2. Oui. Yes. I sat on the floor and held her in my hands. I realized I had a doll like this once, as a little girl. I hadn't felt so close to something quite like it since I lost the thing. There were tears in my eyes. It has been a long time since I ever cried like that. It would have been quite ignominious had I been with anyone at the time. I must have been in some sort of trance because when I looked up, I wasn't in the room anymore, but in some sort of classroom. Note, see level 18, memories. Interviewer. Understood. Interviewee 3. Suppose it's my turn now. Yeah, I think I'm starting to see the pattern here. September 1st for me. Found the thing in Tom's Diner. Note, see level 1, habitable zone. Just laying right on the bar counter. It was a broken beer bottle. I think there were smudges of grease at the neck, and the base was all cracked up. Anyway, there were a bunch of strangers in there that looked at it with desperation. It was kind of scary, but for me, I felt fear, so much of it. Everyone started making a run for the thing, screeching out weird things, saying they were seeing a toy or something. I grabbed the thing, threatened to kill anyone with it. Right before I could even swing, I ended up in level 18 too. Interviewer 1. Well, if that wasn't a refreshing break from all the pure stuff. Laughter from interviewee 1, then brief silence. Tough crowd. Interviewer. Anyhow, as you all may have guessed, there is indeed a pattern. Each of you encountered something different, but with one thing in common. The objects you saw were related to your past. Tell me, after you were all transported to level 18, what did the object do after? Interviewee 1. Well, for me, I didn't feel anything towards the thing anymore, but it was all covered in, what'd you call it, a glitch? Interviewee 3. Static? Interviewee 1 nods. That happened to me too. Touching it did nothing after. Interviewee 2. I suppose I can confirm this to have happened in the doll as well. Interviewer. I see. Thank you, all three of you. This is crucial information. I now doubt we have a simple object in our hands. Do's and don'ts. Do. Find the entity as soon as possible. Resist the urge to pick it up. Kill it right away. Don't. Pick up the entity. Let others fall into the states. Touch an evocationary after it dies.